By the turn of the 20th century, stamp collectors had catalogued the early postal history of Australia down to the millimeter. They inspected paper grains, ink compositions, and watermarks under heavy magnification, confident that the official government record was locked and settled. But that certainty began to unravel when researchers looked closer at the artifacts produced in the chaotic, rapidly expanding environment of 19th century Sydney. In 1904, a Sydney stamp dealer named T.H. Nicol was sorting through old correspondence when he found a 2-pen stamp from New South Wales. According to the official printing ledgers, this specific stamp should not have existed. This schematic breaks down the physical anatomy of Nicol's discovery into 3 layers. On top, we have the printed ink, featuring the later diadem portrait of the Queen. On the outside, we see modern jagged edges, known as an 11 by 12 perforation. But embedded inside the middle paper layer is a double-lined numeral 1 watermark, a paper stock from an entirely different era. You can see the contradiction right here. The modern design and the perforated edges clash entirely with the old watermarked paper. Government records stated clearly that this specific batch of paper had been completely used up long before the new designs and perforators were even introduced. To experts, this was like digging up an ancient Roman tablet and finding a USB port carved into the back. It proved the meticulous official ledgers were wrong, and some undocumented printing event had taken place. 6 years later, in 1910, collector Hamilton Smith uncovered a second impossibility that proved Nicol's find was not an isolated mistake. He discovered another 2-pen stamp, but this one lacked the perforated edges entirely. The ink on the paper was flat, blurry, and completely lacked the sharp, deep ridges characteristic of official government stamps. This comparison shows exactly why that matters. On the left is an engraving, or intaglioprite, the mandated method where ink is pressed deep into carved grooves, leaving raised, sharp lines on the paper. On the right is lithography, a cheaper method where ink is transferred from a flat stone, resulting in the blurred distribution you see here. Both of these discoveries passed every test of authenticity. The Postal Service of New South Wales had evidently resorted to unauthorized printing methods and mixed up supplies, leaving behind a massive secret hidden in plain sight. To understand how these physical impossibilities were forged, we have to look at the immediate pressures facing Sydney in the 1850s. The colony's population was exploding, causing a sudden, massive spike in the daily volume of mail. This relentless public demand forced the printing presses to run constantly. The heavy metal plates used to stamp the designs were subjected to extreme friction, and the engraved grooves rapidly wore away under the continuous pounding. Replacing those worn-out plates quickly became a bureaucratic nightmare. The original engraver, Carmichael, refused to produce new plates. He held the entire production hostage in a dispute over a 10-pound fee to add the colony's name to the design. The colony was failing to uphold a very specific standard. This is the authoritative, regal image of Queen Victoria, a portrait that colonial officials were expected to reproduce with dignity and exact precision. Instead, the physical degradation of the printing plates, combined with petty bureaucratic extortion over a 10-pound fee, paralyzed the Postal Service. They were completely unable to meet demand through official channels. By 1853, the Postmaster General reported that the official engraved plates couldn't produce stamps fast enough to keep the post offices supplied. With the demand skyrocketing and no replacement plates available, the government bypassed the engravers entirely and hired Campbell and Company to rapidly mass-produce millions of stamps using lithographic transfers. As local paper supplies vanished, printers frantically borrowed watermarked paper from neighboring colonies, creating a tangled web of cross-border supply lines. This timeline shows how the 1860 mechanical perforation machines further complicated the process, haphazardly punching jagged edges into leftover stacks of old, borrowed paper. By abandoning strict manufacturing standards to keep the mail moving, the Postal Service engineered the perfect environment for historical errors to slip through. When we apply this history of chaotic supply lines to T.H. Nicol's 1904 discovery, it ceases to be an impossibility. During the frantic borrowing of paper from neighboring regions, a stray sheet bearing the old 1 watermark slipped into a fresh stack of 2 watermarks. It was loaded into the press, printed with the modern design, and sent to the public. Hamilton Smith's flat, blurry, unperforated stamp from 1910 has a similar origin. It is a surviving test sheet from the frantic Campbell and Company lithograph printings, a stopgap measure that bypassed the official perforation machines entirely. These anomalies serve as a forensic record of the Postal Service's survival strategy. They are the physical evidence of moments when a colony's administrative systems were forced to improvise. Today, the systems that govern Sydney are highly structured and standardized. This contrast highlights the true intellectual appeal of high-stakes philately. It is a form of forensic history, conducted on a scale of millimeters. Every blurred ink line, a jagged edge, and misplaced watermark acts as a microscopic time capsule. They capture the exact moment a human being made an error under pressure. The most valuable historical artifacts are often those specific items created when a society is forced to innovate in real time, leaving behind a trail of errors that reveal the true story of its development.